Did we ever end up asking the set of Lady Ballers if there was a
I did.
Okay.
There were no actual sex scenes, obviously, in Daily Wire's Lady Ballers, but there were sexually suggestive scenes. And I asked Billy Ray Brandt, who played Coach Rob's girlfriend, were there intimacy coordinators on set for any of those scenes? And she said, no, we just had acting coaches, and I was just heavily prepped for those scenes.
Well,
so everything was fine.
Sounds like Jennifer Aniston needs to be in the next Daily Wire movie. I'm sure that would happen.
Sure.
Jennifer Aniston is dishing on the infamous and raunchy John Hamm sex scene. Viewers of the morning show, I don't know if we have any, do we have anybody that watches Apple TV in the chat? There might be some.
Literally
people in there.
no one.
Now in its third season, featured a steamy scene with Aniston and Hamm. In a new interview with Variety, she opened up about that moment with the Mad Men star. She says, quote, "They asked us if we wanted an intimacy coordinator. I'm from the olden days, so I was like, what does that mean?" She said, I don't buy for a second that she doesn't know what that means.
They said, it's where someone asks you if you're okay. And I'm like, please, this is awkward enough. We're seasoned. We can figure this one out.
Yeah.
So the way they explained to her what an intimacy coordinator is someone standing, a third person standing in
voyeuristically
watching you simulate sex in the room and then asking you periodically, are you okay? Are you okay?
Somebody needs to make a skit. There's a great skit to be made where just like a really creepy intimacy coordinator asks all the right questions in the wrong voice. Is it good?
How you feeling?
Are you okay?
SNL would do that if they were funny.
If they were funny, they would do that. It says, but here's the thing. I always wondered, and I could be wrong because I'm not an actor, but it's like, shouldn't the director, if he's doing his job, also be able to do this?
Well, usually intimacy coordinators are also directors. There's no one who just goes by intimacy coordinator in Hollywood. They're multiple trades.
Yeah, but they're not the director on that episode. They're still an intimacy coordinator for that scene, right? So why not send all the directors to intimacy school training? Huh?
That sounds awful.
What's it called? Continued education, right? Continued learning or whatever that they make all professionals do. So to continue your professional development, you drag Martin Scorsese's old ass into continued learning training so that he can learn how to be an intimacy coordinator, so he can ask all of the right questions when he's making his movies.
I'm sure they go to diversity, equity, inclusion conferences.
Yeah.
And they do continued learning in that way.
Yeah. It says, intimacy coordinators are becoming more commonplace in Hollywood. Yes, because Hollywood is full of weirdos that need to be watched over for the sake of HR, not for the sake of these people's safety.
Well, the reason actually that intimacy coordinators are becoming more commonplace in Hollywood is because sex scenes are becoming more commonplace in Hollywood, especially with the downfall of network television and now with streaming shows. Anything goes. You can show basically flat out pornographic scenes in any TV show as if it's normal. And that is the reason why intimacy coordinators are a thing, because people are naturally uncomfortable with simulating sex on camera. It is not a natural thing to do. You need to convince yourself that this is normal and this is just something I do in my profession, and do mental gymnastics to convince yourself that this is appropriate when it is not.
I watched a Jason Statham and Jet Li movie called War from 2007 over the weekend, and there was definitely like a scene where it's basically in a montage where the Jet Li's character, who's essentially like a Yakuza hitman, and he's like taking on the Yakuza and the Triads by pretending to work with both of them. And he gets like a payment from one of these crime bosses, and it's brought to him by a call girl who then essentially just takes her clothes off. But then like the scene cuts where she just walks into the bedroom and it doesn't actually show anything else there. So they get their moment of nudity, which I'm sure they're like, we got a rated R in this movie. We're going to cuss a bunch. There's a bunch of blood. Why don't we just fit this one thing in there because we need to do it? But they didn't go any farther than that. They didn't show anything beyond that other than just the woman walking into the bedroom. But nowadays, if you did that scene, they would probably, by studio notes, be asked to show more than just that. So It says intimacy coordinators are becoming more commonplace because, but some actors from the olden days, such as Aniston herself, they don't understand. Do you remember Sean Bean basically got called? And remember, here's the thing, she's not going to get labeled for this. Sean Bean was basically called a creepy old man for being like, we can figure it out on our own. Right? Like, because when a guy says the same thing, it's lecherous and creepy and he just wants to put his hands on the woman. But when Jennifer Aniston says it, the comments are basically, that's because she's a professional. She's a pro.
I think for both of them, it's creepy. I would say no matter what, if you think that putting pornographic imagery in mainstream television and movies is normal, and you think that this is normal professional behavior for actors, that is creepy and that is weird.
How would you fix it? So other than like removing them outright, right? So not about removing them, but about like, what would you change? Because it feels like there are definitely certain aspects of the audience. Like if you go through Twitter, right? You look at these topics when people are talking about these issues, and a lot of times, depending on the account you're looking at, it can be split down the lines of some people are like, oh my gosh, I love that scene, and then a lot of other people who are saying this is not necessary, why are these in movies these days? How would you fix it?
I have never seen anyone say that a favorite scene of theirs from a TV show or a movie is a graphic sex scene. What I mostly see from Gen Z is that they feel deeply uncomfortable with graphic sex scenes being in their TV shows and movies, and that is borne out in polling data from how they feel about it.
It's usually from accounts that are like anime avatars, could be bot accounts for all I know. I don't know. I just know that there's something in the hiring practices from Hollywood that tells them, or in the production practices from Hollywood that tells them that adding more of these is a good idea. And back in the day, it was a novelty, right? There was only Showtime and Cinemax and HBO and the rest of the stuff that you watched on network TV and even basic cable. Sure, you got an F word on basic cable once a season. They were like allowed one F word a season on these shows, but you didn't get a whole lot of this. But now everything is essentially what Cinemax and HBO and Showtime were back then. So you're just going to get more content like that. But it's almost like it leaves everybody else kind of in the lurch. All the people who were programmed to like the stuff that didn't have that, the people who watched network TV, the people who watched basic cable, you leave them in, because still people like to watch stuff with friends and family. It's still weird if you watch something like this and you're like around people you know.
I even would feel weird when I'm watching a sex scene and I'm alone.
Yeah.
But yes, if you're around other people, it's even more uncomfortable. And I don't think there actually has been a unanimous public sentiment that this is what we want from our entertainment. I think that just like the way Hollywood mandates diversity into TV shows against or disregarding public sentiment around that. Nobody's clamoring for that. They, by studio mandate, insert diversity and inclusion quotas into TV shows. They insert, minority characters, storylines that are unnecessary into these TV shows. And similarly, against public sentiment, they insert sex scenes and graphic imagery and nudity into TV shows because irrespective of whether it has anything to do with making more money, it is the social impact that they want. They want to coarsen the culture. That is their goal.
To me, the imagery, not necessarily, because the stuff that I remember from when I was younger, it wasn't sex scenes, it was just nudity, meaning that there was characters that were nude, whether it was like, one of the things I always laugh at to this day, network television strip clubs. Which is they're basically fully clothed, and I was like, why are these guys? You look at it and you're like, who are these morons paying money for women dancing with actual clothes on? This is very, very stupid. But when you watch something like that back in the day, what it was is it set the tone for the show you were watching, meaning like it made the show feel more serious because you were seeing something that you wouldn't have seen on network television. So it actually added to the ambiance of what you were watching. But those weren't sex scenes. That was just nudity that was shown to make it seem more realistic.
I think normalizing this to the public has been a gradual, incremental process that started with what was called tasteful nudity or tasteful sex scenes that hide certain things. And slowly but surely, it becomes just as graphic as anything you would find on a porn site. That is how you get people to gradually accept these things, not because they were asking for it, and not because it has anything to do with incentivizing people to watch these shows and making more money.
Yeah.
It's really, none of it is about making more money. It is about the social impact they want to have on society.
Yeah. Yep. It's and I don't think it gets any better personally. I think it only gets worse from here on out, because the model isn't going to change. We're in the streaming model now forever, or at least for the foreseeable future, right? It's an expensive model now because you have to subscribe to like 9,000 streaming services. And even if you choose to sail the high seas, the content you're sailing the high seas for is the content that's being put out on these platforms that have a priced barrier to entry that is supposed to make it okay to put nudity in there. So
Right.
I don't think it's going anywhere.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.